Afternoon and evening, wherever you are, and welcome to NerdTube. And it's time to talk about the Hulk Hogan documentary. I am here with, oh, here we go. In D Jose 101. How you doing?
Yo, yo, yo. Oh, baby, we are here to talk. Let me tell you something, brother. The Hulk Hogan documentary, brother.
And Gary, how you doing?
I'm doing real well.
All right. So, we are going to talk about. Let's just stop this. Sorry, can you hear this, by the way?
Yeah, you got to stop the music. There you go.
Okay. There you go. So it didn't work out the way I wanted. I do apologize, but anyway, regardless, it was the effort that counts.
Yep.
So before we are going to talk about each episode individually, and we're going to give you our opinions and thoughts about certain things that we found interesting in each episode. But before we do that, just an overall feeling and vibe about what you thought about this series. I'll start with you, Jose.
I thought it was actually better than Vince's because there's stuff that you know, but stuff you don't know. It feels like a trip down memory lane. Without giving too much away, I love the part where like they go into him looking at his storage and a trip down yesteryear and all that kind of stuff. But we'll get into the rest of it. But it was definitely worth the watch.
Yeah, Gary.
I thought it was a really candid look at his life because it was like, apart from what they were saying, like the last interviews he did before he passed away, unfortunately. So I thought it was really good. It was probably more candid that I thought I've ever seen him. So because he seemed to like be a bit more honest than I've seen him in, like, about everything, the mistakes he's made and how everything started for him, that sort of thing. As Jose just said.
Yeah, I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was excellent, to tell you the truth. And it wasn't just about the nostalgia and the vibes. I was very up and down watching this. It was funny. Jimmy Hart said it best. Like life is a speed bump, and watching this series felt like speed bumps because there was moments where I felt like a kid again, and watching Hogan and what he meant to me when I was young, and then the adult in me saw elements of him as he got older, and finding out certain home truths about him. But what I loved about this series more is the psychological aspect of what it truly means to be Hulk Hogan, to be a dude who got an opportunity in life to be a wrestler, and then next thing you know, you are idolized by millions, and having to maintain that image consistently. It's fascinating. It really is, and you're only human. He's Terry Bollea, and he's having to be Hulk Hogan. When he said, like, when people go to him, "Hey Hulk, how you doing?" He goes, yeah, I'm all right, brother, and all that sort of stuff. That's him being Hulk Hogan, not being Terry Bollea, if you know what I mean. And those sort of things, and having to live up to the responsibility of being this character, this humongous baby face that kids adore and corporations want to milk from. It was fascinating. It really was. All right. Time to talk about the episode. So each episode resembled different periods of his life. We In episode one, it was just about the early days in his history. Episode two was Hulkamania. Episode three was like the New World Order and him turning heel, and in the latter stages of his career. And episode four was kind of like after he retired and a little bit of TNA and some of the stuff he did as an elder statesman, legendary ex wrestler, if you know what I mean. So in episode one, which was the first match, him kind of rising to the top, so to speak. We saw what he was like, and the guy's quite a talented dude. He's a musician. He's being a bass player, and then obviously he got into he was already a big guy anyway, so he got into bodybuilding and became a wrestler, and he done acting and all of that as well. But he thought wrestling was real as a young person, and then realized it wasn't when he heard people making calls. It must have been somebody who was John Cena was inspired to follow. Regardless, he got into the industry, and he was tailor made to get to the top simply because of how he looked and his size. Anyone want to add to this?
It was weird seeing him skinny, like when he first started out. It was weird, like not seeing the 24-inch pythons and seeing Hogan with chest hair, like when he was coming up, like as like Terry Boulder, and then he became Terry the Hulk Boulder. That was weird, but yeah, seeing the rise of Hulk Hogan was a very interesting thing in the episode, and I think they covered like Vince McMahon Senior and shit like that, and other stuff. But yeah, that was just weird seeing him that way, just in that
He
shape.
started. He started off with wearing a mask,
Yep.
and because that way you can wrestle without people knowing who you are. And
Yeah,
yeah,
the
the
Super
territory.
Destroyer.
Yeah, and he did wrestle for Vince McMahon Senior, and then he wrestled in Minnesota. He wrestled for various people back when the territories was still a thing. But he was a heel when he first really started. Um, because of how he looked and how big he was and how menacing he was. He was the bad guy. Gary, he's frozen in time.
Oh,
Hopefully, Gary will come back. I'm sure he's got something to say. But yeah, Hogan, he he was a journeyman guy, and the funny thing is that a lot of people like what I did like about the series as well, Jose, was we did get opinions from various wrestlers like Bret Hart, like Jimmy Hart, and various other people. I'm surprised we didn't get any Jim Cornette, but maybe he's I don't know, maybe he's a bit too honest. But regardless, um, one thing I did like was that yeah, we got opinion from these guys, but these guys never dominated the episode. Bret Hart was in it, but it wasn't all about Bret Hart, if you know what I mean. It was they made sure that Hulk Hogan was the focus. And this documentary, like the Vince McMahon documentary, it wasn't people outside looking in and then talking about stuff. No, Hulk Hogan kind of narrated his own documentary with the interview, if you know what I mean.
yeah. They didn't have anybody narrating. He was kind of, just going along with it, just with the interview. And that was an interesting process that they did. Like, he basically retold his entire story of his life.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, so okay, well, unfortunately, Gary's kind of disappeared into the space-time continuum. Oh, he's back now. Let's see if we can get some information out of him.
Sorry about that.
No problem, Gary. So, any elements in episode 1 that stuck out to you?
It was just good to see like his beginning. Like he talks about his dad. He talks about his mom. He's talking about like how his dad was very strict on him and but was like working really hard to provide for the family and stuff like that. So it's like you can tell that he has like some respect for his dad, but like he had to work hard to try and get his dad's respect and stuff like that, which was like some so candid. So he talked about how he
David Patil. Yeah.
Yeah, very original. So so we had him like talk about his mood, which is something I knew about. I knew that in fact he was a bass player.
I knew that too.
Yeah, it was just good to see that. And then, as you were saying before, like he started to work out and he started to become, Terry Boulder and stuff like that. And
I just want to quickly mention, if you don't mind me quickly adding, that they didn't really bring up Brutus Beefcake too much because we saw in Brutus Beefcake's Dark Side documentary that him and Hogan were pretty much connected to the hip, but we never saw it. We never at all saw that, or his time in Japan. By the way, they never mentioned that either.
But anyway. No, they didn't. And his dad. Yeah, good thing Boss Man brought up his parents. Because he came from the generation where parents did not tell their kids they loved them. I mean, that was just a completely different time. His dad was like that old school, hardworking Italian, and they favored his brother more than they did Terry, and that kind of ate away at him. And we'll elaborate later, like in the next episode, like about his parents. But yeah, his parents just did not really give him the love and adoration that he needed growing up, which was sad to hear that.
Yeah. Anything else to add, boss man?
Yeah, and then like you basically he traveled from a lot of territories, like as you were just saying, like you went from like AWA, Mid South, that sort of stuff. I mean, those are stuff I knew about. That he had to like get his chops in those territories, and that's something that I think, and I don't know if you two agree with me, is been lost at like because
Oh
now
yeah, definitely.
because like you see talent now, they basically they don't have those training grounds to kind of cut their teeth on before they make it to WWE or AEW, whatever. Like, I mean, there's a few indies about, but there's not like the territories where they could go and like work with different people, learn different styles, and maybe like learn their own persona. Like, you know, Hulk Hogan was something that happened overnight for him. It's something where he had to learn it. Something that I
Yeah.
thought was very interesting.
You know what I also found fascinating as well is that we did see a lot of his early stuff when it came to training. You know, he was a bit skinnier, a bit more green, a bit more hair on his head, and we saw him training, which was fascinating having that footage available. It's crazy now, but if you look at us now, you know, in 100 years time or whatever, or 50 years time, when we look back at the past, there'll be tons of fucking footage because we've all got phones. You know, but for them, you know, to like have to carry little cameras and stuff, and it wasn't a digital era either back in the 70s. You know, they had to fucking, you know, use film and stuff like that, and to have all the footage of him wrestling, amazing. I mean, when they have wrestling training, that is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and they didn't
Um,
even mention, speaking of the training, that they didn't even mention Hiro Matsuda's name. They said that his trainer just broke his leg, and it's like they kind of glossed over Hiro Matsuda. I'm like,
yeah,
Hiro Matsuda was the one that broke Hogan in the business, broke Hogan's leg, and it took Hogan a year to come back to resume his
yeah,
training because
Yeah,
he
I mean,
broke
look,
his leg.
yeah, and he didn't mention exactly why that happened, which was that apparently, from what I heard, like Hulk Hogan was very and said something that upset him, and that's the reason he broke his leg. It's like because Hiro Matsuda was like old school. Like I'd like, I mean, because he trained like him, he trained Lex Luger, he trained a few other people. And he's like, you know, there was nobody who was more respected in the business for, because basically that's what old training used to be like, is that they would stretch you, and if you got a line, they'd basically break a body part.
yeah. It was no joke being learning the industry back then. So he did end up meeting Vince McMahon Senior at one point, but Vince McMahon Senior saw this guy in the territories and thought, "Yeah, I'll have a piece of that." And it came to naming him. And this is the funny thing because you look at Hogan, you know, the blonde hair and all that shit, and even when he was playing Terry Boulder, he was putting on a bit of a southern accent to a degree, you know, and you know he's from Florida and he's having to put on a hick accent, but when he was given like, you know, when the Hulk persona kind of merged from obviously the Incredible Hulk and Terry Boulder and all of this sort of stuff, and finally when it came to Vince McMahon Senior, it was Vince McMahon Senior who named him Hulk Hogan, and he's like thinking, mate, I'm fucking Italian, yeah, and you're calling me Hulk Hogan, but it worked. I mean, the
Yeah,
guy, he could pass for an Irishman or an Englishman quite easily. You
yeah. And here's a
know, yeah.
tidbit for those of you that played the Legends of Wrestling 2 video game by Acclaim, a game that was really awful, but it had like the interviews of like all the wrestlers. Hulk Hogan got interviewed, and he was like, "Yeah, the reason that they named me Hulk Hogan was to appeal to the Irish Americans, and what people don't know is they actually wanted him to dye his hair and mustache red." Like they wanted him to go all out and be like this Irish dude, and it's just something that I just cannot imagine. I can't
Oh
see
my
Hogan with
god.
like, yeah, I just can't see Hogan with like red hair and a mustache. There's just no way. It's just one of those things you just can't picture.
Yeah. I mean, he had a very iconic look, you know, with the balding long hair and the fucking handlebar and all of that. But then they gave him his colors, which was the red and yellow, and and then you know he had to fight the Iron Sheik. I think we're kind of getting into episode 2 territory a little bit now,
Yeah,
aren't we?
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think this stops at like him going back to WWE and turning face.
Yeah, he turned. Yeah, it was. I remember. Oh, yeah, I remember. Like he aligned himself with somebody. And by the way, this is something that also annoyed me because you could
Rocky,
very much
wait. Before you guys get into it, you're kind of fast forwarding.
Rocky 3, yeah,
Rocky 3
yeah.
and AWA first, and then the part where
Go on, talk about that, Jose.
Okay, yeah. So Hogan got a call from Stallone, and Stallone was on, I think, Johnny Carson or something like that. And he was like, I saw this guy called Hulk Hogan, and he beat up like 12 guys, one night in the ring. So I had to cast him in Rocky 3. And then Vince McMahon Sr. was like, yo, if you do this movie, you're never going to work here again. And Vince Sr. fired him. And then he went on to AWA. And a lot of people don't know, they wanted to make Hulk Hogan the champion of AWA. But Vince Jr., being that cunning, linguistic motherfucker, got Hulk Hogan first, and now we can go ahead and fast forward to the rise of Hulkamania. Because Junior was getting ready to take over for his dad. They mentioned that in the doc.
I also want to mention that they never mention Superstar Billy Graham at all. Yeah, and this is the problem now when you got Hulk Hogan almost narrating his own thing, because he's not going to bring up the fact that he carbon copied Superstar Billy Graham and everything, the look, the catchphrases and stuff, and Dusty Rhodes.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Without a doubt.
It's more Superstar Billy Graham with the whole brother thing and like
exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that not all of it, because there's a lot of his own mannerisms in there as well. So, but I think it's like Vince McMahon Jr. So Vince McMahon that we know, basically said for him to do that because basically they missed the ball on Superstar Billy Graham, because apparently like they didn't capitalize on him being as over as he was. It's like, right, I'm going to capitalize this guy. I'm going to get somebody who looks like $1 million and get him to do all those mannerisms.
Yeah, and boy, did he do that. So going into episode 2 now, we're seeing the rise of Hulkamania. Now he, by the way, in episode 1, we do see him turning face and how he's seen the light and stuff. They really tried to make face turns and heel turns more convincing and authentic back then, and you can see the personality change Hogan had, and he started coming across as somebody more enlightened when he had his face change. And now he's, the world is oyster. Like the Iron Sheik is beating Bob Backlund for the WWF Championship, and
do you know why? Do you know why they had Hulk Hogan take the title off the Iron Sheik? Because here's something else.
It was a revolving door for Hulk Hogan to be the champion, obviously, and the Americana. They went down the patriotism route and all of that.
Yep, but here's why: because originally Bob Backlund was supposed to do the job for Hogan, and Bob Backlund pulled that doesn't work for me, brother, because he was like, no, I want to continue being the champion, and they made Iron Sheik the champion so they could do babyface versus heel dynamic, and it worked out really well. I mean,
it worked out better in my opinion.
It worked out better, and it was on MTV, and the world was talking about it. It was like they said in the documentary, like Hogan beat the Iron Sheik, and that was the rise of the rock and wrestling era. Because then we got Cyndi Lauper, Mr. T, Roddy Piper. We got a ton of people involved. Muhammad Ali. Yep.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is now everyone in that match is gone. It's crazy to think about that. Hogan, Iron Sheik, and
this is before WrestleMania. This was before WrestleMania.
Yeah, all those guys that are in the match are gone. Even the commentators, Gorilla and Pat Patterson, called that match. All those dudes are gone, and that match is 42 years old. It's just crazy how fast time goes.
Yeah, but they threw the patriotism gimmick on Hogan. He was American. All American, all this shit, waving the flag, stars and stripes, and it's crazy how things have gone full circle with the situation in Iran. It's nothing like it was back in the 80s, where everybody in America hated Iran. Now it's not the same nowadays, but back then, Iron Sheik was without that the villain, and you needed an American hero to come along, and here comes Hulk Hogan. Dun, 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 finger pointing, leg drop, all of that shit, becomes the champion. And we go on to WrestleMania. which was obviously Vince McMahon's biggest gamble, and we already know all about this. So we don't have to go into too much detail into this, but WrestleMania ended up being the success it was. I mean, they always show clips of it with the showgirls and Muhammad Ali, Cyndi Lauper, Lou
Liberace.
Albino. Sorry,
Liberace.
Liberace, yeah. All of this, and then the main event, which set in stone. It's crazy when you think about it, like a tag team main event for WrestleMania. But that first one was the case. Hulk Hogan and Mr. T, who was super famous back then and he was just as famous, or arguably bigger than Hogan was, because of the A Team. It's amazing how they used each other to, improve their careers. But yeah, he was super over, and he became his tag team partner, and they're fighting Mr. Wonderful and Roddy Piper, and yeah, it was massive, absolutely massive, blew the socks off, and after that, Vince pretty much, he made so much fucking money. He put his whole house on WrestleMania, but he reaped the rewards, and he was able to do WrestleMania 2, King Kong Bundy, and then boom, WrestleMania 3, the legendary match against Andre the Giant. Need we say more with all of that? Anything to add before I continue?
No, we can just keep going because
Okay.
they've already covered all this shit.
Well,
but the one thing I was going to mention was the funny part was the historian about how, like, every time that Hogan told the story of slamming Andre would gain 100 pounds.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my god, because he did that too. Like, even as a heel, he was like, Andre was like 600 pounds the first time I slammed him. Then he was 700 pounds, and then I picked him up and he was 800 pounds. And I was just like, "Yep, that's Terry being Terry."
I forgot to mention as well, like Hogan when he first came along in the industry, he fought Ted DiBiase. This is episode 1, and DiBiase made sure that he put him over. But he would end up fighting DiBiase a few more times, as we get into WrestleMania 4 and WrestleMania 5, with the Mega Powers exploding.
He wrestled him before he did the whole Build Man thing.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, but by the time like the WWE had begun going down the direction it did with its after WrestleMania 1, we started getting all these characters. We got the Macho Man Randy Savage, we got the $1 Million Man Ted DiBiase, and then after a few years, we ended up getting arguably the person who was supposed to be his successor in the Ultimate Warrior. I'm glad they brought this up without staying on it too long. They brought up but we know, because this is not the Ultimate Warriors documentary. There is a documentary for that.
I know, but the funny thing about it is the hypocrisy of, like, they bury the Ultimate Warrior and then he dies and they whitewash the Warrior's past, and then the highlight of the whole fucking episode was like Jake Roberts and Ted DiBiase and Bret Hart.
Oh, yeah, Jake Roberts was in this as well. Yeah,
they were burying the shit out of the Ultimate Warrior, calling him the ultimate shit, and like he was not a guy's guy. Couldn't work. I was just I was dying.
Look, this is something I never really truly appreciated until I watched this. It's crazy. I've seen loads of different documentaries and stuff like that. The Dark Side of the Ring, obviously the Rise and Fall of the Ultimate Warrior, and then the most recent Ultimate Warrior documentary as well, which they had on TV a couple of years ago. There's loads of Ultimate Warrior stuff, and people have talked about it. But what made me realize what was wrong with Ultimate Warrior was that the fact that you can't be having a guy doing promos by going like that. He's talking like that the whole fucking time. Yeah, he can't just be a bit more normal. Oh, Hogan with the powers of the Warriors and all this sort of shit. Like, mate, you got to calm your shit down and talk like a normal fucking person at the time. You got to be a bit more human, a bit more relatable. And initially, unfortunately for Warrior, the way he was as a character, he was always going to be a flash in the pan, and that was the problem. Like, he couldn't normalize his shit. He had to be fucking this crazy, bizarre guy. Even if he controlled his demons, this character was not like he like having to be somebody. Like, imagine him having to try and be going to schools and stuff like this. This character of an Ultimate Warrior, this guy from parts unknown, and they're either a fucking hospital doing Make-A-Wish. It just doesn't work. You know what I mean? And so that was one of his downfalls. That his gimmick was good for what it was, but it wasn't good in the sense that you can revolve the industry around. And that's why John Cena was so fucking popular. John Cena was popular because his shit worked. It worked. With the Make-A-Wish and all of this sort of stuff. Same with Hulk Hogan and all of that. And now Cody Rhodes as well. Now you see what they're doing with him. You need somebody who's approachable, not necessarily scary. And Warrior was too fucking scary, too fucking crazy to be the face of a company.
And not to mention he was a total dick, because like when that clip of the autograph signing, he was like, that lady was like, "Can you look up at me?" And he just looked up at her 1 second, and then he put his head right back down. And it's like, Warrior was just a total ass, and it was like, they were like, "Oh, the Warrior immediately fell off," but the Warrior held that damn belt for about a good 7-8 months. He held it for a while.
Yeah, he held it. Yeah, but still, it wasn't. Once he lost it, he never got it back. And the point is, he was unreliable and all of this sort of stuff. He would. Look, you could be a good politician, which is what Hulk Hogan was, and and still kiss babies and shit like that. Warrior was none of that. He was none of that. And his time in this, so it made me realize that somebody who really liked the Ultimate Warrior, I never thought he was as bad as everyone else made him out to be. He excited me, but now I truly get it watching this series that this guy, he was not marketable for the long run. You know what I mean? Impossible. Gary, I apologize. I'm hogging the mic. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, because we've sketched past the fact that he meets his wife in like just a random place. I think this is before he goes back the second time. So he meets her. I think it was like while he worked for Crockett. I think. So
I forgot about his wife. Yeah.
So like, his first wife anyway. And she basically like she's like there and he can't take his eyes off her, and then he like just like. She said that she takes one step onto the floor and like he grabs her. And it's like okay, and then they marry just as he goes back to basically be Hulk Hogan basically. The WrestleMania 1 isn't as great as people think it is. Like it has Mr. T and Hulk Hogan versus Orndorff as Roddy Piper. And like they have to work around like Mr. T's lack of wrestling ability. Then the Caesar disaster. If you've ever watched it, like do you have it in like three? I think it's like 3 different places.
Yeah, they have it in different places.
Yeah, and then the 3 is the famous one with the whole slam thing. Which does make Hulk Hogan a megastar. And like and then like he's on a roll from there. Like the one thing that they did scoop patch, which I really wanted them to focus on, which was the Mega Powers.
Yes,
because that entire story was amazing. Like
they brushed over Randy Savage totally.
They totally did. Randy didn't get named once. And the thing is, like WWE. They did such a good job of making you think that Andre had never been slammed. The fun fact is, that was not the first time Hogan slammed Andre.
Yeah, he slammed him when he was a heel. Yep. I remember, I seen it. He picked him up so easily as well, scooped him up like it was nothing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I seen that match. Just a little fucking dinky little arena. You know what I mean? But I remember that.
Yep, and Andre had been slammed by Kamala. He got slammed by a lot of people. And Andre, of course, he lost a lot, but they tried to make you think, oh, he'd never been beaten in 15 years. Yeah, bullshit. Andre lost plenty of matches, just not always by pinfall or submission. He just got counted out most of the time. But, they did such a good job. And, after WrestleMania 3, it was like that, you could argue, was the peak of the rock and wrestling era, was Hogan slamming Andre. And then they completely gloss over Mania 4 and 5. And, well, they kind of touch on it, but Randy Savage is shown, but they did not mention his name one time.
Yeah, by then, like Hope, you can only keep things going for so long, and they needed another star. They were right. They needed another. You can't only have one star. You need more than one star, like top of the food chain star, which is when the Warrior came in. But he was unreliable, and before you know it, we're going to go back to what works, and we're going to go back to Hulk Hogan. Gulf War's already started now. The first Gulf War. Sergeant Slaughter is now playing the Iron Sheik. They went really right back to everything. You know what I mean? They mentioned it. I never realized until they mentioned it in the series how they went back to basics beyond belief. With all of that, the Americana again, waving the flag, all of this shit. And
yeah, the only difference is Hogan got hit with a chair and he got busted open, and that was the only difference between the Slaughter match and the Iron Sheik match.
yes.
Yep.
I'll give Hogan credit. He wasn't afraid to make himself bleed. So
Yeah, because
Sorry.
the best one of my favorite roles of his is when he is after that, like he then like he starts slowing down because people are going like Russ that Hulkamania is kind of on the wane, because he I'm trying to think, because I'm sure like he loses it. I think he loses it to. Does he lose it to the Undertaker? He loses it to the Undertaker, which is one thing they don't put on, because he told the Undertaker that he legit hurt him when he gave him the tombstone on a steel chair, but his head doesn't even touch the flaming floor.
No, and then he's like, and then he's like, "Oh, you got me, brother. You pinched my neck." And I'm like, "Dude, he had you as secure and safe as could be." And then Hogan lays there in the ring for like 7 minutes. Call my wife. Someone get my wife on the phone.
He never brought this up at all. Which is crazy. Like some of these fables in wrestling, they never brought up once. I mean, they did a couple, but I'll get to that a bit later, but they're further down the line. But but by this particular time, they skipped past 8 and we're going straight to 9. Like by this particular time, like Hogan's kind of like in semi-retirement mode and all that sort of shit, and he's
because basically Vince McMahon goes to him after the whole Yokozuna Bret Hart thing,
and Bret Hart, he was the MVP of that episode because he was mad. He was like, "Man, I cannot believe this bullshit. Like, I, do all this work to make Yoko look like a monster. And then, okay, I get beaten and I got to roll out of the ring and I got to go tell Terry, oh, go get my belt. Go get my belt. That was mine." And then he's like, "Fuck you." And I just was like, people could give Bret shit for being bitter. But the one thing you can say about him is he doesn't pull any punches.
Travis Berger, I hope I think your name, or Berg Jr. I apologize. Travis Berg Jr. Thank you for the $2 super chat. Yeah, it was a decent doc. All of us enjoyed it. I did. It was an emotional roller coaster for me. I mentioned this in the beginning of our review. Like I enjoyed this. Yeah, I have a very much a love-hate relationship with Hulk Hogan. Because the child in me still loves the guy, but the adult in me has issues with him. But now he's gone, I don't want to speak ill of the dead. Especially, there are people obviously who are ill of the dead that I would speak of, but Hogan is not necessarily one of them. Anything else, fellas, before I move on? I want to actually bring up Bret Hart thing as well, because Bret Hart, he had no love for Hogan, and I like the way he mentioned. I like the way he mentioned, "Oh yeah, Hogan's coming in to take care of me after I've been, Hogan did this all the fucking time, whether it be WrestleMania 4 or WrestleMania 9. He has to come in at the end and fucking make his presence felt. Like, mate, it's not all about you, but this is the thing. It had to be about Hogan, and this was the problem with him. Like, mate, your spot is cemented. You're Hulk Hogan. You're not going to no longer be a mid-carder. You're fucking Hulk Hogan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because apparently, after the whole kerfuffle, Vince McMahon goes,
"Yeah, you're right.
I think your run's more or less done."
Bret Hart never holds back. Yeah,
and Hulk Hogan was like, "What?" And then he started doing those movies that we all know. From this period.
We all know and hate. Yeah. Like Suburban Commando and it's funny, like obviously no holds barred and stuff, but Christopher Lloyd having to work with him, he had good things to say about Hulk Hogan, but he was mesmerized by him initially, but this side of this motherfucker, he's like 6'7", 8", built like a brick shit house. It was a little bit intimidating first, but yeah, he said he was a nice guy. I'm sure Hogan, when he's like doing his stuff outside of the ring and he's having to mingle with Hollywood and stuff like that, yeah, he knows how to do what he does because he's got a decent sort of career and to a degree in show business. So that's why he constantly gets called back. He's been doing show business his entire life. So he knows how to mingle with the stars, so to speak. And yeah, but he did make flops though. He did make a lot of flops. My God,
Santa with Muscles, flaming Three Ninjas, flaming
Mr. Nanny.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Did you ever see him on Jonathan Ross? I mean, I know Jonathan Ross went to America to interview him. We saw clips of that in this. But when he came to England and he was promoting Mr. Nanny, yeah. And you know what the thing is, Jose, in America, fanny means ass, yeah?
Yep.
In England, fanny means vag, yeah? So when he comes to England and he goes, yo, brother, Mr. Nanny wants some fanny. Mr. Nanny wants some fanny. Like, and the British audience are laughing their fucking ass off at him. Yeah, because, like, mate, fanny means something different here in the UK. It doesn't mean ass. Oh, it's so funny. It was, I remember that. I'm not sure if you ever saw that.
No,
Gary.
I did not.
No, I kind of remember that. Like, I remember him coming there and, like, that being a thing.
Yeah.
But, like, he, as I said, like, he was in the movies and stuff like that. And then, like, I remember him going to WCW because I remember the whole parade and, like...
he wanted to... Oh, sorry, if you don't want to interrupt him, like, he wanted... he did wrestling, Hollywood for a while, but he didn't like how it's very stop and start, bit slow. He liked the pace of how wrestling is. You're moving about, you're in the ring, you're doing a lot of stuff. You're never just sitting around. It's quite a hectic business, and he didn't like that in Hollywood, where it wasn't as hectic as it was in wrestling. Which is when he went back to wrestling, and it just so happened that where he was doing filming, WCW was next door. And then he got speaking to, was it Ted Turner?
Yes.
Yeah, he talked to Ted and talked to Eric. And what they glossed over again was that all those guys that came over because of Hulk Hogan, like Mean Gene and Bobby Heenan, Randy Savage, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, it was literally the Hogan and Friends show in WCW in 94, 95. It
always is. He always brings his entourage wherever he fucking goes, doesn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, and he brought a lot of like over the hill wrestlers with him into WCW, and like he got that bullshit parade in Disneyland or whatever, where he's driving in this, he's sitting in his car and he's coming in, and the fake audience. I remember all of this. I do. I remember all of this shit, man. And there he is wearing his red and yellow, and he's still able to keep the name Hulk Hogan. He owns the rights to it, I guess. And he ends up joining the company, but. You can see that times are changing now. Like, it's been over 10 years and the audience has evolved, and they're not appreciating the Hulkster like he wanted, and the guy's getting booed like he's fucking Sami Zayn. You know what I mean? Like, they're not happy with him.
No, because the red and yellow, people got tired of it. It was the same.
Yeah. So the initial pop when he went back to WCW. So when he went to WCW.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's just like when he came back to WWE, But then next thing you know, the outsiders come along, because it's just like 1 week ago, Nash and Hall were in the WWE, and all of a sudden, boom, now they're...
God, that time it could not have worked out better. Like if they had the 90-day complete clause and they both had to wait, Jesus.
I have to say, Jose and Gary, for me, what culminated from this, what began... And what culminated, I don't know to say how it ended, because there's no real ending to this. But what began, and then obviously what came with Hogan a little bit later and onwards, this for me is the greatest storyline in wrestling. Nothing comes close to this.
Yep.
Yeah, with the outsiders coming in, and it felt so fucking real. It felt as real, like the lines were being blurred, and like how shocked everyone was. All the faces, the heels, like it felt like a unification. Like, what the fuck are these guys doing here? And all of that. And obviously, people started to realize, these guys are definitely part of the industry now. But then they turned it up a notch when Hall and Nash were beating the shit out of Randy Savage in the ring. And lo and behold, here comes the hero again, Hulk Hogan coming to the ring. And I watched this live, by the way. I
Yep.
saw this happen. Did you watch it as it happened?
I watched it as it happened, and
I
it's
didn't
like
know.
Yeah,
it was
I watched
great,
it as it.
except for
Yeah.
if you take Bobby Heenan's commentary out of it, it's the greatest turn of all time. Like even
you know
Kevin
what?
Nash said that. Kevin Nash was like, "It's great unless you listen to Bobby," and he goes into business for himself. But I disagree. I'm like, Bobby, like, you know, in a way, kind of made it his own of like, whose side is he on? Whose side is he on? I would have said like, "Oh shit, here comes Hogan, this hot dogger." I
I
would have
didn't
said,
even
"Here
know
he
it's
comes."
Bobby Heenan, by the way, because
Yep.
even if he said something like that, I would never even I would never even considered it. You know, it
Yeah.
was because I didn't know. Even though Hogan was a heel in his when he first started in his career, I only ever knew Hulk Hogan as the All American babyface. I never once knew him as anything else. You know, what I mean, the righteous guy, the guy who fucking kisses babies. This is the Hogan I know. So he comes into the ring, and boom, he drops the fucking leg on Savage. You know, and then next you know,
In that moment, the entire wrestling industry changed. I mean, because you can't deny it. I mean, like, because like as soon as he dropped that elbow, you felt the momentum switch. Like,
and you know, this is what I appreciate about WCW, because WWE, they miss a trick when it comes to their clean cut baby faces who are selling them too many shirts. You know, like you can see in the wind. There's an opportunity for you guys to change things here, but they just don't want to pull on the trigger. They never wanted to do that with Hogan at all. If Hogan was still in the WWE, he would have gone the way of John Cena. He would never have turned heel, ever. You know, I mean, so much so that when he came back to WWE, Vince McMahon, I'm jumping ahead, but I will get back to where we are. Vince McMahon immediately turned him face the moment he had the opportunity to. But it's, John Cena, the moment he became a babyface, he was a babyface for 2 decades. And Cody Rhodes, like, people are booing the fuck out of this guy, and you made Randy Orton heel when it should have been Cody Rhodes when you had the opportunity. Like, they want that clean cut babyface, and it's very frustrating. It really is. The days of Rock and Hogan, who were the faces of the company, sorry, not Hogan, Austin, they don't want to go. They don't want to do that anymore. It's really annoying. It really is. But regardless, WCW took advantage of the situation and they turned him heel. And credit to it, because the heel version of Hogan was the version of Hogan for WCW. Heel Hogan in face in the WWE, heel in WCW.
Yep.
You want to add to anything? You want to add to that?
I think that. Go ahead, boss man.
Sorry, I was going to. So you wanted to go first, didn't you?
Go on, Jose. Go on, Jose.
I can go.
Okay,
yes,
go on,
so basically, this basically not only saved his career, but it what's the word? It basically it basically revitalized his career, because like basically he went on his best run. Like the whole NWO thing basically like saved him from just being, and also from what his career was, which was just the red and yellow. And then he just went. Then he was like the black and the favorite, like the lightning pants and all that stuff.
He wore his wife's clothes, for fuck's sake. He wore his wife's leggings and shit. No, I don't care either. It was the look. It was the right look. He needed to get away.
It was just amazing. Because literally, like, he was getting cheered as a heel, because the NWO were cool. And people would say, "Oh, we don't turn this one heel. He don't make money." It's like the NWO make more money than a lot of faces would dream in their lifetimes.
Mate,
the merch,
money,
the
NWO
t-shirts, the NWO merch, that made money hand over fist for WCW. Because a lot of WCW fans were NWO fans, because they were cool, they were hip. And the thing is that. And this is something that they didn't go into the documentary. Sorry I'm speaking so much.
Keep going.
But when Hogan refused to do the job for Sting, was Starrcade 90? Was it 96?
Yeah, it was a 1 year feud. It was really good, yeah. But the matches was shit.
When he refused to do that job, it was over. Because the thing is if he did that job and he did it clean, WWE, it doesn't matter what Stone Cold Steve Austin or Mike Tyson's doing. They lose, because Sting would have been bigger than then Sting would be bigger than anybody. He would be bigger than The Rock, bigger than famous Stone Cold. He'd be bigger than all of them.
But the Sting, it was already big. That's the thing. Like,
No,
Sting
but
doesn't need to.
that would have been the what's the word? That would have been the firecracker up his ass. That'd be like that. He would have been that big. He would have been over Steve Austin. He'd be that kind of draw.
I don't know. I already looked at Sting as like massive anyway. You know, like I looked at Sting as like people could put Sting on the Mount Rushmore. He's that big already.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. I'm just saying, like, if Hogan gave him that clean win, WCW takes over WWE. I'm telling you.
But you know, regarding the storyline and stuff, I just remember thinking to myself, "Holy shit! Who is there? Who's going to go up against Hogan?" Because everybody was joining the NWO. You know, like they had everybody.
Yeah,
in there,
and I think that was part of the problem as well. Is that like the NWO got too big. It's like there was nobody like DDP was one of the people who went. You know, Goldberg was one of the people who went against it. Sting was one of the people who went against it, and I think they needed some more people who went against it. And I think it should have been like newer stars. So it's sort of like your Guerreros, your Chris Benoit's, your Fabian, who else is it? Like Dean Malenko's, Perry Saturn's, people like that should have been the like Raven when he came in. Like they should have been the guys to go against the NWO, in my opinion, just so that they can take over for when those guys start, you know, fagging off into the sunset or retiring.
The problem with the NWO, though, for me, was that they just did not know when to get off this train. It was so amazing. Like I said, the greatest storyline in wrestling when it began, and obviously with the greatest heel turn in wrestling with Hulk Hogan. But they didn't know what else to do. What we're going to do afterwards. They had no contingency plan, no alternative plan. It was, it went on for years, years and years, and then they had the Wolfpack and
then you had NWO Red, you had Flaming, NWO Flaming Latino brand, you had the Flaming you had LWO everything, and it got so convoluted. At the end, it's just like no, it's like literally like what should have happened. It should have been like 4 or 5 guys. They're the core NWO. And then, like, maybe, like, people start flying back, and maybe, like, as things go on, they're the new, the people who take over are your vampiros, your, as I said before, your newer guys. You put those over your Booker T's, and they're your new talent that you can build around.
What it is eventually that Hulk Hogan, you're right, though. I agree that eventually Hulk Hogan had to step down again. And let other people come in, and he couldn't do that.
No, he couldn't get out of the way. And the thing that they gloss over again, and I know this was pure Terry, he did not want to talk about that contract of WCW from 1998, because you can find it out there on Google.
You can find it on creative control.
Yeah. Yes. The creative control, the $150,000 a month every month that he's a member of the NWO, like, a percentage of the gates and house shows and pay-per-views, and Hogan was bleeding that company dry. And the biggest criticism that I could give Hogan, even though, okay, I don't care for good guy Hulk Hogan. I love NWO Hogan. I'm forever an NWO Hogan mark. The biggest criticisms that I think we can give him is that he barely defended that WCW belt. He was always in the main event all the time, and he just wouldn't get out of the way. And I think we could all agree Starrcade 97 would have been the perfect end for Hulk Hogan entirely had he just did the job for Sting clean. And none of this, and
then he retired.
Yeah, and then he retired.
I was thinking about if you're when you're Hulk Hogan, the good guy, you have to be Hulk Hogan, the bad guy, but somehow still maintain certain isms about you from the good guy, which means that you're not cowardly, because Hulk Hogan was never cowardly. So when he started going on his knees, going, "Oh, brother, no, I don't want you to hurt me anymore, brother," and all that shit. No, that's Hulk Hogan would never do that as a face. So why the fuck are you doing that as a heel? It makes no sense. This is not who Hulk Hogan is. You don't become that successful to be scared of somebody. You're Hulk Hogan, for fuck's sake. Hey, heel or face, nobody should be able to fuck with you.
Yep.
Stuff like that really bugged me. That bugged me so fucking much. And obviously we then go into the finger poke of doom, which came Kevin Nash was also, by the way, involved in this, and he in this interview, and he was obviously part and parcel of the finger poker thing. But you talk about the beginning of the end. This was the beginning of the end right here.
Oh, yeah.
It was a slow end. Don't get me wrong, but it began with the finger poker thing because you can't be building up to this match between these two guys who were leaders of different versions of the NWO just to do that shit. My fucking God, that was awful.
And let's be real, even though the original plan was the original plan was to have for 8 months, Goldberg smashed the NWO. We've seen that already. What's this going to do? It wouldn't have done anything. It would have been just a retread of more of the same shit. You're just going to have Goldberg smash through everybody just to get to Hogan again and then beat Hogan again. Okay. Then
They never brought up Goldberg either, by the way.
No Goldberg, no. What's the other one? No Fabian. No, nothing. Sorry.
Who else was there? Goldberg was the next big thing, man.
DDP,
yeah, you're right about that, DDP too. But they quickly gloss over a few things, and before you know it, Vince McMahon has bought the WWE, for $2 million, which is crazy.
You mean WCW?
Sorry, WCW for $2 million fucking dollars. Even back in the 90s, that was fucking peanuts, man. That pocket change for fucking Vince. And he bought it. He bought his competition, which was arguably the worst thing to happen in wrestling because in order for things to be entertaining, you need to compete against somebody. But buying out your competition, this is also when WWE also became a show for one person and one person only, and that was Vince McMahon. But Vince McMahon would stop listening to the audience after this. It'd be only who he wanted to because there's no other wrestling out there, just his. But that's another story. But Hulk Hogan, obviously, he ended up going back to WWE as the NWO, with Hall and Nash, and then he has that legendary match against The Rock, and some people call it the greatest match of all time. Now, for me, it's not the greatest match of all time. It's nowhere near the greatest match of all time, but the crowd was so into it, that it became
the crowd made that match. I mean, the thing is that I think people don't give credit Hogan and Rock enough credit on getting that reaction up, being the ones who got the reaction out of the crowd because they did the right things to evoke that reaction. Because Toronto crowds, and again, the Jose will probably know more about this than I do, but Toronto crowds are always one of the hottest crowds that I think it I think it's Atlanta, I think it's Atlanta, Toronto, Chicago, Texas. I mean, are there the ones that you would say that are hot crowds? Or would you say that the ones I just
I would say you got it pretty accurate. With the Hogan thing, I would say honestly, it's Hogan's best Mania match that he had. I think as far as in-ring quality, The Rock kind of carried him through that match. Hogan did his part.
Yeah, when Hogan hulked up, and the entire crowd, you can see it. Everyone just went, yeah, and then you went, what you gonna do? And then everybody just lost their shit. It's you don't get that unless you've earned that. Because he was hurt, he was heel at first, and then he basically did the double turn. They didn't do the double turn, but they did the turn on Hogan.
Well, they did the double turn as far as the match is concerned, but not after the match. They just went back to their ways.
No. Hogan went on the face turn because this is something that
the double turn regarding the match because they realized on the fly they made the change. Rock and Hogan. The guys experienced wrestlers. Regardless of what Bret Hart says about Hogan. Hogan's no fucking spring chicken. He's been wrestling for decades by that point, so they were able to take advantage of the situation and play different characters. But at the same time, Hogan was the people. I remember when he came back at No Way Out, because obviously the NWO, No Way Out, all that. It was very clever marketing. They came back, the NWO, and Hogan got a massive pop. But when they did their fucking promo in the ring, and but he's fucking Hulk Hogan, he's He's not fucking any old guy. He's fucking Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan was nostalgically was always going to get a massive reaction, dude. You know what I mean? It was nostalgia that played part. Even Triple H mentioned it earlier on when they decided to bring Hogan back full time. You know, it was the wrong move because they were playing on nostalgia initially, and then Hulk Hogan was throwing his fucking weight around. But yeah, after he lost to The Rock, they couldn't wait to put him back in the red and yellow.
And give him the title. And give him the fucking belt, too, because that's another thing they didn't mention. Like, immediately after, like, the Hogan and The Rock have their match, he loses The Rock. He gets it from Triple H the very next month. Then he loses it to The Undertaker in one of the worst matches of all time and one of the worst choke slams of all time, too, if you go back and watch it. Taker's like, jump, asshole. And, yeah, Hogan just totally sandbagged Taker.
I don't think that time Hogan's knees were in the best.
No, Hogan as well.
Hogan. Yeah, go ahead.
I think Hogan at the time, well, maybe this is maybe he thought he was dealing with the same Undertaker he dealt back then with his Tombstone pile driver, but no. By this particular time, Undertaker is like a 12-year WWE veteran and one of the most respected men in the locker room. He fucked with the wrong Undertaker on this particular occasion, in my opinion. Jose.
Yeah, you know, he and Terry and Undertaker did not like each other. You could just tell, like, yeah, the Undertaker praises Hulk Hogan for being one of the biggest names, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But you could just tell, like, Undertaker thinks that Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan, is full of shit. And I agree. I mean, whenever these two wrestled, Hogan just always tried to sandbag the Undertaker and make the Undertaker look like shit.
Yeah. But yeah, he came back full time. They brought up Shawn Michaels, which I was so happy. You know, his match in 2005 SummerSlam against Shawn Michaels, where he admitted that Shawn Michaels was overselling. You know, but once again, they just brought that up very briefly without mentioning some of the more finer details that they were supposed to have a 3-match feud, and he was going to probably win that feud. But Michaels was supposed to win at least the second match, but they never did that. So Michaels, you know, became the fucking rodeo clown that he was in that match. And I love watching that match. I go back to that. There's some matches I go back to, like when Eddie Guerrero beat Brock Lesnar and this match, you know, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. It makes me laugh to this fucking day, you know. And another thing they never brought up, because this is the one thing he did, his third gimmick, which I actually liked, but they never brought it up, was Mr. America. They never brought up Mr. America.
Yes.
Mr. America was awesome. I liked Mr. America.
Yeah. It was the greatest, like, non-kept secret in the history of the business. Like, we all fucking knew the very second they hit Real American, I'm like, it's going to be Hogan. I knew that the week before they aired it, the week before they said anything about this motherfucker. I'm like, it's going to be Hulk Hogan. We know it. And it was great. I'm fucking pissed off that Mr. America is not in any of the video games. Do you know that? He's never been in any of the video games. They've never had that attire, ever.
Well,
not
one. They prematurely, but the thing with Hogan is that after Mr. America, because this is why I'm pissed off they never brought it, he left the WWE after that gimmick, and whilst he was in the middle of that gimmick, he was dealing with that kid Zack Ryder, I think his name was.
Yeah, that's correct.
Zach Gallen.
Zach Gallen, sorry. Yeah, and all that shit. He was doing, you know, the one-legged kid and all of that sort of stuff. So he was dealing with all of that shit and stuff like that. And then he was supposed to be doing some more. He fell out with Vince, as he would usually do. And before you know it, he's fired, and that's it. He's done. He's done within the WWE after that. He's not coming back, and that's what pisses me off. They never brought this up at all, you know, because it was a great gimmick, in my opinion. And it was a spin on his Real American and stuff like that, and I fucking loved it. I actually loved it. I really appreciated it. But yeah, he's now done with the WWE. Obviously, him and Vince, they've had ups and downs. They even wrestled at Mania. Yeah,
which I wish they would have talked about in this documentary.
Yeah, they kind of went over that. Like, it was like they showed it, but they didn't really talk about it. And it was
but you know, I'll give Hogan something here, because Vince McMahon threw Hogan under the bus after fucking Hogan saved Vince McMahon from going to jail by saying in court that Vince did not supply me with steroids. I used them. I bought them myself under my own, you know, for myself, not through Vince. And by saying that, Vince didn't come across as a fucking pusher. and he saved Vince from going to jail. And then Vince afterwards fucking throws on Hogan under the bus after what Hogan did to him. That was fucked, man. So no wonder they had an up and down relationship. But regardless, yeah, he's done, and he's now. He even said that when he got home, he woke up one day and he realized he was an old man. And he's now properly retired after this. And I think we're going into episode 4 now.
Yep.
Yeah, this is like where he kind of like retires from WWE. He kind of, I think he's like semi-retired from in-ring stuff, from what I understand. Like, and this is when him and Linda start having like marriage. No, this is the Fabian like reality series, which I think everyone agrees now was a mistake.
Yeah, but it made them a bit of money, and it got them a bit. He wanted to get Brooks some popularity and stuff like that.
Actually, that's one question. Why the bloody hell is Brooke Hogan not in this?
No, she didn't want to be in this.
She didn't want to be in it. Her and her dad and mom did not get along. To this day, she doesn't get along with her mom.
Yeah, and Brooke has also got 2 kids as well. She didn't want to get them involved in all of this shit. It's a shame we never really heard about Hogan being a grandfather or anything like that. But with Brooke having a couple of kids, I don't think she wanted any more spotlight. And she's been out the spotlight for a while, so I respect the fact that she doesn't want any more of it. So
Yep.
Sorry, I apologize. I'm just messaging my friend here.
Right.
So Hogan Opens. I did watch it. Did you guys watch it?
I watched.
Yeah, I watched it.
Some episodes of it.
Yeah, new tattoo. Daniel wants. Yeah, I got it today.
I watched some episodes of it, and it was just like Hulk Hogan came across as a very jealous person. Not jealous, but like protective of his daughter. But his son, he was like, "Oh, you go and do what you want," and we've seen how that has played out the rest of their lives. Because Nick Hogan has been in like a couple of DUI situations and like been to jail and stuff like that. I mean, I've heard that Nick has got his shit together and is like with his new wife and is getting his life, has basically got his life okay now. But for the first bit of his life, no, he was a total train wreck.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know what? This is quite a common occurrence of kids of really famous people and not being able to get out of their shadow, and and this, you see that quite often, really. It's quite a common thing. So, but eventually, you do grow up, and you do put childish things behind you, and he has as well, especially with his dad. You can see that he still idolized his dad. He would work out with his dad. And I have to say with Hulk Hogan, even in the 70s, he was fucking jacked. You know what I mean? For a man in his 70s. And he would work out with his dad, and he cared for his dad, and he loved his dad. And this is this part of the episode which made me really conflicted in how I felt about Hogan, because like seeing him as this old fragile man, I felt something in my heart. I really did. And
this began like him and Linda's marriage problems. Because they actually show in the reality show they're going to a couples counselling session, and that had gone on, and then like the last straw. Sorry to talk over you, Sam. The last straw was the maid finding an earring or something like that in their bed, because apparently like Hulk had been sleeping with one of Brooke's friends or something.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, because I'm not sure if that was the same person he had the sex tape with.
No, it's a different person.
Okay.
Yep.
But this is the thing as well, because later on down that line as well, he had the sex tape, and I never saw the sex tape. I never wanted to watch the sex tape. The idea of watching Hogan, bumping uglies does not fucking appeal to me whatsoever. But I did feel for Hogan to a degree. Like, mate, this is private. This is your private time, and people are throwing that out to the world. Like, oh, Hulk Hogan had sex with a woman. Who fucking hasn't done that? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
maybe your parents, all your parents have all fucking done that, and for them to make a big deal about that and that shit to be leaked, I thought that was stuff like that. I find bad taste. Hogan's done nothing wrong, but obviously his wife has moved on. Have you noticed how his wife basically found a younger version of him? You know
Yep.
what I mean? He looked like Terry Bollea as a kid.
Apparently, like she was about that guy was like some friend of like Nick's, which was like
Yeah, they went to school
Yeah,
with
yeah.
he went to school with like Nick and Brooke. But yeah, my thoughts are as far as that reality show, that was the beginning of the end of the Balea family. I mean, if you ask me honestly, like that was the beginning of the end because, Hulk, I guess, had cheated on Linda or whatever the hell, and then they divorced, whatever. They did not cover this. She raked him dry in the divorce, taking 70% of his money, and that hurt to hear that. Like that dude was only left with maybe about like $20 million out of everything that
Only
he did, out of all the millions that he made. She took him for everything, took him for the
took him for the
house,
cleaners.
boat, yeah, house, boat, cars, you name it. He lost all of it. And that was a pretty low point in Hogan's life. And man, it was just sad to hear that.
yeah,
But with the sex tape allegation, he managed to make himself 140 million.
yeah, yeah, but that's after this. That was when he was in TNA, and like because apparently like because what they didn't talk about was the fact that the person he had the sex tape with was Bobby Lashley's wife. I believe that's who he was with, and
Very enough.
and apparently Bobby Lashley is the person filming the shit. Because basically, because this is when his life takes a turn for the negative because what's the word like
The racist allegation.
was not an allegation. Basically, he's caught on camera saying
Yeah. It's not an
pretty
allegation.
racist stuff about because apparently Brooke Hogan at that time was dating a black man, and he got caught saying the N word. Again, I think I'm right about this. I'm not too sure the details, but I think that's more or less what I've because you see around the same time because this is what this is because at the time I was actually about to defend Hulk Hogan just to put myself in this because I heard about these allegations and then like I found a shoot interview where he talks about the infamous thing where Booker T used the N word and I thought all right so that's what it's about it's basically Hulk Hogan quoting framing Booker T from all those years ago and then no it was partly him using it about like somebody that Brooke was dating, and it's just like going like, and like in this, I mean, they brush over it very quickly. He talks about it a little bit of the racial allegations, which were like, well, not allegations, but the racial stuff he said, and he says, well, it was part of the house I came from. And I was like, well, the thing is that I mean, we all come from houses where like people said and did things we don't do now, and and it's just I mean the thing is this I wish there was more focus put on that because like these are things that people generally do think that Hulk Hogan was racist. Now, my opinion is I don't think he is. I just think he just grew up in a time where those attitudes were about, and unfortunately, he co-opted them.
Well, he did say on that tape that he did admit that he said, I am a racist to a point. And once that's out there, that's out there. That's
Yeah.
going to be people's perception of Terry
Yeah.
Bollea. Like, he may not mean that he may not actually mean it, but it's like, dude, once you say certain things, people are going to have that perception of you of like,
Yeah.
oh, fuck. Yep. And as a black man, it fucking hurt to hear that come out of Hulk Hogan's mouth because I may not have been a fan of Hulk Hogan as a child, except for the NWO, but it was like, man, a piece of my childhood died that day that the language from the tapes came out.
He's the level of racist where if you're a black guy, yeah, he'll be friends with you, invite you to your house. But you better not fucking get in my family. That's about as far as you get, mate. You know what I mean? You can come into my house, you can eat at my dining table. We can be friends. I'll invite you to the barbecue, but you'll never marry into my fucking family. And that's the level of racist that he is, unfortunately. But yeah, he didn't want Brooke to be marrying this. But I did hear also that he would be totally fine with Brooke going out with this guy if he was like a millionaire or some shit like that. I'm not sure if you heard about that as well. But regardless, that became yesterday's news pretty fast with somebody like Hulk Hogan. And yeah, TNA came along. You know, the final chapter in his wrestling career, I guess. After, well, I wouldn't say the third chapter. I mean, you got the territories, which is the first, WWE, WWF, which is second, WCW, which is first. So I think TNA was the fourth, I guess.
Yep, and Eric Bischoff brought him in because like Hogan was just at that low point where I don't think he was talking to anybody like after the divorce with Linda. Like he was just that down and that depressed, and that TNA run kind of rejuvenated his career, I guess, quote unquote, you could say, even though to me it felt like he was there just for the money, and they glossed over this, but they used him way too much on television.
Agreed.
Way too much.
It was WCW all over again, and they wanted, but this time around, you saw with his back, the guy with like the fucking bionic man, he had bolts coming out of his fucking back, so many surgeries and stuff.
Yeah, like I mean, the thing is that he should have just been like what Ric Flair was on WWE, like a general manager or like a matchmaker. I think that's the way that you were using him initially, and then he started getting involved in storylines. It's like, dude, you don't need to be in the ring anymore. Like, you don't need to be doing shit. You could just trade off your name. You don't need to be doing this shit. Because the thing is that it's like Jose said, like, I mean, because like he used to be like 6'8", and then by the time all the surgeries stopped, he was like 6'5". So that's and so like because you have to keep him removing vertebrae because his back was so fucked and like his legs were fucked and like it's like you know, like the thing is that the guy shouldn't have been in the ring. He should have said, right, I am here just to get so like it's just to be honest, I thought TNA was kind of sad because like if they just kept him like he was like on screen sort of authority figure, that would have worked great. But unfortunately, the guy had to get involved in angles. And I think the one I remember was to do with Brooke, actually, where she was marrying Bubba Ray, or Bully Ray as he was at the time. And then that was a whole story.
No, he was Brother Ray, or I think before
Brother Ray, Bully Ray, doesn't really fucking matter.
Yeah. Anyway, that there was a whole storyline to do with them, and then like he was getting involved in storylines. I was like, dude, it's like you're 50 odd, like you, and plus your foot's like physically, like I mean, like there are a lot of 50-year-olds who can still wrestle. And look, I'm not as somebody who's a wrestler.
He's more like 60 odd, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, like probably no, he was like 50 odd when he was doing that, wasn't he?
No, he was like, we're talking about 2012 and shit. He was probably maybe 58, but definitely closer to his 60s. He was 72 when he died, you know. So
yeah, so that's just the thing that just bothered the frig out of me was that he is that he was getting involved in storylines when he didn't need to, and he was putting his body through more damage than had been done to it. And as you were saying, so the mate goes on, he had bolts in his back. He had I think at this point he was developing the leg problems that we saw in the Fabian in a documentary because he had to use a walking stick, and it's just like if he had done, in my opinion, if he'd not done those bumps in Fabian TNA, he'd probably be all right now. I mean, it's still probably been damaged from years and years, but I think those last couple of bumps just like Fabian took him over the edge, in my opinion.
I look, for me, regarding TNA, like I've said this many a times, like his introduction into TNA and Dixie Carter giving him free reign to do what the fuck he wants ruined TNA. Because he had too much influence. Mate, you're a fucking employee. You're getting paid fucking trillions of dollars. You know, you need us to revitalize your career. Obviously, we need each other, but then don't fucking come in. Be an advocate. But you're not Hulk Hogan from the 80s or 90s. Even you're a different Hulk Hogan. Put people over. Be be the oracle of sorts. Be that Paul Heyman character. Help elevate new guys. Don't make it about yourself. But no. Not only did he make it about himself, he brought in all the fucking entourage as well. When I saw the Nasty Boys walk in with their fucking fat asses, I thought, we're done here. we're absolutely. And then the ring changed to the 4 sides. I know a lot of people didn't like the 6-sided ring, but I think with Evolution and stuff like that, they could have made the 6-sided ring work and be more safer and softer. But that never happened. That never materialized. But he definitely was the person who stopped it from happening. That's for sure.
Oh, guaranteed. He and Bischoff were like, yeah, that 6-sided ring's not going to work. We need to make it a 4-sided ring. And of all the people, AJ Styles was the most vocal about it. He was pissed. He was like,
You've taken away our originality.
Yep.
Yeah, our identity, and I stopped watching after that. I remember I was so upset. I even tweeted Dixie Carter telling her I would stop watching it, and I had to stand by my words and not be one of these guys who say I would still watch it while not watching it. I stopped watching TNA. It really just not appealed to me.
How I got known on YouTube on my channel, I got known for destroying TNA every week during the Hogan and Bischoff era. And like about a year in, I was like, okay, I'm fucking done with this because you change the fucking ring, you change the name, you change it to where TNA doesn't even exist anymore. They basically killed that whole entire brand around late 2010, and I was just like,
to bring out the Monday Night Wars again and shit. Like, what the fuck, man? Know your lane. There's nothing wrong. This is what I keep telling people. WCW, TNA, and now even AEW. There is nothing wrong in being number 2. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong in it. Don't try and be number 1. Be happy you're in the industry. Be number 2, and you can't elevate yourself to the top rapidly. WWE have got so many years, decades. 42 manias. They've got so much shit under their belt. They were always going to be number 1, even when they have bad periods, and they have a lot of that. You can't just be number 1 because you believe in your company. Be happy being number 2. But none of these companies ever think like that, which is annoying. And then they end up ruining themselves. But he was in and out of TNA, literally, and he's like looking at and now he's just becoming this guy who'd be going to fan conventions and signing autographs but next thing you know, politics becomes a thing. And we saw Donald Trump doing interviews, and we also saw Hogan, who knew Donald Trump, and he's known Donald Trump for years, decades, even all the way back to WrestleMania 4 and 5, when they did the Trump Towers.
I didn't know that Donald Trump was going to be in this, and when he started showing up, I was like, oh.
I was just like, it's whatever. I mean, you knew they were going to talk about it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. But for me, like I said, what I liked about this documentary is that regardless who it was, Kevin Nash, Bret Hart, Jake the Snake Roberts, Donald Trump, they never were on the show long enough to be the show. It always was Hogan. Hogan was the show.
Hogan was the constant, and Hogan, there were things that they glossed over. Like, I'm still pissed, even though I know they've covered it to death. I am pissed that they didn't cover Hogan's exit from WCW. I wish they had. Like, they touched on Vince Russo, but they didn't really get into it. That was one of those things I would have liked to have heard more about.
Vince Russo. I'm sorry, even I glossed over that. Yeah, they brought up Vince Russo, but he was the guy who made it into reality television. But honestly, when the Outsiders came in and then Hogan turned heel, look, I know that wasn't the Attitude Era, but that was like the pre-Attitude Era because it felt attitudey. You know what I mean, with NWO and all of that sort of stuff. And the WWE just like they've always done is rode the waves of their competitors. And so and made money off it because they were always the number 1 company. And they did that with ECW. They've done that with WCW. They've even probably done that with TNA. You know what I mean? So,
They definitely done that with TNA. I mean, basically, sure. they've run 2 of the big talents of TNA. But anyway, but this was his last thing in wrestling, I think.
Yeah, and but he starts getting involved in politics. And he said that he was never going to. Say anything.
That they didn't mention was his second marriage. Well, they mentioned that he got divorced, but they didn't mention Tutu. So
no, they did bring it up in the episode 4, but I'm going to get to that in a second. But he did kind of like brought himself back into the spotlight by being an advocate for Donald Trump. and he was doing all his usual Hulk Hogan stuff. But then he was he fell back into love again with this new lady and she's beautiful. I could totally understand why Hulk Hogan, was smitten by her. You know, she looked a bit like Tori Wilson a little bit. I'm not sure if you agree.
A little bit.
But
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. But regardless, you know, they fell in love, and I'm not sure if he did the prenup with her or not, but they fell in love, and they got married, and Hogan is, you know, he's now happy again, and he's doing conventions, he's doing politics, he's selling his all American beer, and he's got his picture on it and stuff like that, his real American beer and all of that. And you know, famously, and by the way, this is the funny thing. I'm not sure if you noticed this. Before he put his shirt on, he cut the shirt a little bit, a little slit in the shirt.
Yep. Yeah, he did.
So he was able, so he could rip it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean,
that's how you know he doesn't have the 24-inch pythons anymore. He's got the garter snakes now, because that's what they are. He's got those old man arms, and it was one of the funniest things seeing him just do the shirt rip and cut a like wrestling promo and hearing all these people go woo, and he's like, I feel like I'm in Madison Square Garden here. I just died at that. I was just like, oh my god, this is so cheesy and so stupid. And like he's like with it, and like another thing. Hulk Hogan cannot say the word "got" properly. He always says "gut." I don't know if you ever noticed that. Like when they got in the face of my hero and they shot him and they did all this stuff, and it's like just the way he talks. It's one of those things. It's like I just caught on to that and I just started laughing.
Well, we're gonna go into the final thing now, which was significant to Hogan before he died, and that was the Raw on Netflix. Which was a big event at the time because Netflix had basically bought a stake in the WWE, and outside of the United States, their shows were going to be on every fucking channel, and obviously Raw was going to be on Netflix in all the countries around the world, and so this was a big deal. And WWE brought in all the people. They brought in Undertaker. They brought everybody back. Hey, quiet, you guys. And yeah, Hogan made an appearance with Jimmy Hart, and they booed the fuck out of him, you know, and they said it was a blue stay, and they blamed Donald Trump, but unfortunately with Hogan, he had a lot of negativity at this particular time with the racist shit and stuff like that, and obviously, you know, advocating for Donald Trump. But this is the funny thing: there are a lot of wrestlers in the WWE who advocate for Donald Trump, from Triple H to Undertaker. You know, Linda McMahon, for fuck's sake, in his cabinet. You know, but neither Undertaker or Triple H ever got booed. You know, because they keep their shit to a minimum. Hulk Hogan, unfortunately, he made too much of a mark. They didn't like him, and there's a generation of fans now who've only ever seen Hulk Hogan in video clips, and they couldn't appreciate him the way we saw him. Yep. Where we watched this guy grow up, you know, watched, you know, all of this sort of stuff, defeating bad guys and everything, saying your prayers and drinking your milk and eating your vitamins, all of this shit. They could never appreciate that. You know, he was a clown, and he was a sellout. Yeah.
And here's what's funny: like they like to blame it, like, oh, LA is just a wild side of town, or whatever the fuck Triple H said. You know, he's like, oh, LA is just a wild town, and you know they're that other side. I think it has a little bit to do with Hogan being MAGA, but I really think it was because the reason why he got booed is because people see Terry Bollea as a piece of shit. And I will forever stand by that reason. I'll be like, okay, does it have a little bit to do with the fact that he's MAGA? Yes. But I think most of it has to do with the fact that he's just seen as a piece of shit. And when even being, yeah, but the MAGA was the icing. But yeah, it was just like the fact that this dude's a piece of shit. He's a pathological liar. And all this other stuff. And the fact that he stayed in it way too long to where people just don't want to see you. When you got like X-Pac heat, like go the fuck away. We don't like you. It's just a combination of things. That is why Hogan got booed.
Well, this is the funny thing, because I thought Hogan did a good job in this interview, and I didn't think he was telling too many fables. But boy, did he tell a big one. As we say in England, the porky pie, aka lie, porky pie. When he said how he loved getting booed Yeah, that time in Los Angeles, you can see right through Hogan that he was telling a lie. He didn't love getting booed. He never appreciated it. It's not about all this heat and he'll just come back as a bad guy and all that sort of stuff. He was waving the fucking stars and stripes and all that sort of shit, and they booed the fuck out of him. He tried to get the crowd on their side by mentioning Macho Man and fucking Andre the Giant. They weren't buying it. They still booed the fuck out of you, and he stone cold blatantly lied that he loved it. You know, he fucking hated it. You could just tell. Gary?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was, to be honest, yeah, like part of me is sad that was the last thing that he ever did on television because, like, I mean, I can understand it because, like, it's like what Jose said, like, because we've got to understand that, like, people were fed up of his bullshit at that point. Like, they were fed up of his lies, or fed up of like his ties to Trump. They're fed up with like his racism. They're fed up with everything. And it's just a shame that somebody who for so many years was tied to the wrestling industry, flaming. I mean, whether you liked him or not, he is the. I mean, he's like what the first. If he's not the first wrestler you think of when you think of wrestling, he's like the second. So like,
Well, he's got he's got his status. He's the legendary guy. He's fucking Hulk Hogan, man.
He's the first head to the left on the Mount Rushmore, and this is coming from somebody that can't fucking stand him. Like I
when
would
it comes,
give him his due. And when it comes to being like a top draw,
a
drawing
celebrity,
power,
yeah.
being like a top draw, drawing power, Hogan is that first head to the left. Austin is right there next to him. And that's just how it is because without Hogan and Vince McMahon Jr. doing what they did, there's a case that we might not be here right now even talking about it. So that's how much credit that they deserve.
I agree because when it comes to wrestling, there's a whole bunch of wrestlers who you can have an argument for, and that is Undertaker, The Rock, Steve Austin, Ric Flair. There's a whole bunch of guys who you can say do they belong or not. But there's no doubt in my mind, because of way things began, because so much shit began with Hulk Hogan. You can have all the people in the back running, pushing the buttons and writing shit on paper like Vince McMahon did, but you need a talent. You need an absolute talent to get people's bums on seats and perform the way he did. And you can see that with Ultimate Warrior, that was never going to be the case. But with Hulk Hogan, he was that guy. He was that guy. The way he spoke, the inspiration, the adulation, the way kids just fucking loved him. He said the right things. He was that talent, and he got the ball rolling. And there were people before him, your Bruno Sammartinos, your Bob Backlund. There were people before him, but he made it mainstream, and he will always be that. And I agree with Jose. Everyone else is an argument, but for me, without a doubt, Hulk Hogan's the first. There's no if, buts, or maybes. There's no if, buts, or maybes.
I say Hogan, Austin, and for their one tip. They can argue. Well, I mean, we can argue about.
I mean, look, I think for me, to not mention The Rock, but then you got people with technical brilliance who make wrestling what it is, but then they're within the wrestling circles, like your Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. They don't exceed it, but then people who do exceed it are when you're famous in a particular industry, so famous that people who don't even watch that industry knows who you are. Hulk Hogan's that man. Undertaker's that man, Rock is that man, Austin's that man. Not even Ric Flair's that man, unfortunately. But those four I mentioned, which is probably my fucking Mount Rushmore, would be those guys. And so, but anyway. But this is the sad thing, boys, because Hogan's last involvement in wrestling in any capacity was to get booed at, in Los Angeles on the Raw of Netflix, which is a real shame because the way he came in and the way he went out were polar opposites. And to a degree, he probably deserves better. But then again, like I said, he's got so much baggage, with the racism and MAGA and shit like that. It's maybe he kind of got his just desserts. But only a few months later down the line, he had one of his many surgeries. And this is the thing: when you're of his age, a surgery is not just a regular procedure; it can be life and death.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're having a neck surgery, it was life and death. And before you know it, I think on July 25th, he 24th. Went in for a neck 24th. Sorry, He
Yep.
went on. He went to have one of many surgeries that he's had, but this time on his neck, and he never recovered from it. And he died. And Hulk Hogan, somebody who I thought would live until his 80s, died at the age of 71.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Died at 71.
And we then proceed to see the reactions of so many people, like, having to bring that up. You see Bruce Pritchard crying, Hacksaw Jim Duggan crying, like, you can't believe it, Hogan's dead, and then you see, like, the old guard of DiBiase there, and and all these other old wrestlers, and Jimmy Hart as well, man. I felt so sad for Jimmy Hart. Him and Hogan went back years. I'm kind of surprised. I forgot to bring this up as well. Jimmy Hart obviously had a close relationship with Hulk Hogan, but he was also close to Bret Hart as well, being his manager in the Hart Foundation. I'm kind of surprised he never bridged the gap there when in some capacity. But then again, that's I guess Bret Hart is the sort of guy that doesn't matter that Jimmy Hart knew Hulk Hogan, he doesn't give a fuck. He did mention the fact that Hogan didn't shake his hand at WrestleMania 9, so I can understand him holding a grudge. And Hogan lying again, by the way. Oh, I didn't know. He stuck his hand out. Fuck you, Hogan. You knew he did.
Yep.
But regardless, he's gone, and then we see his funeral, and obviously Vince McMahon's there, and and I'm very much the sort of person who believes that don't be sad all the time. Like, remember, try to be happy. Yes, this person's gone, but let's remember the good times and applaud this person, cheer this person. And I God, I hate saying this about Vince, but I give him credit. What he did was right. Stand up, applaud this guy. Did the this shit and all of that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's how I would like to be remembered. I wouldn't if I ever died and you guys were at my funeral. I wouldn't want you guys to be sad and crying, man. Remember all the funny moments we had and shit like that, and bring that up. That's what I would prefer, and go out happy, be happy. Don't be sad.
Well, very right. Celebrate your life rather than bore your death.
Yes. Quick comment here. We're just talking US wrestlers. I agree with you, but you starting to include early Japanese wrestlers. I have to agree that Hogan is number one. And we're talking about, you got that. Was that what's that guy's name? The one Ric Flair fought in Korea that time. Inoki.
Yeah, Antonio Inoki.
Antonio Inoki. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this guy, but I'm so what I have to say regarding celebrity status. I mean, look, I don't look at Hogan as a technical mastermind. He's far from it. But he put wrestling on the map. He really did. He relied on his peers. I'm not doubting that. Superstar Billy Graham, Inoki, Dusty Rhodes, all of these guys, Bruno Sammartino, Bob Backlund. He relied on all of these motherfuckers. But he ended up being that final jigsaw puzzle to say, okay, we're going places now. And somebody else might not have been able to pull it off. Imagine if Jim Hellwig had to do what Hogan did initially. I don't think he would be able to pull it off,
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. Jim Hellwig being Ultimate Warrior. And we already saw that. So, and yeah, Nick Hogan now is having to remember his dad. You see him, he's still got his dad's boots, size 17s. You see how big fucking Hogan's feet were and shit like that. He's gone, and everyone's missing him. They do the 10 bell salute on SmackDown. All of these things,
and there's some people who didn't like being out there because of his background. It's just a shame. And then like the thing that was kind of made me sad for him was the fact that he mentions how many like surgeries he had. It's something ridiculous, like 8 surgeries on his back, like 5 on his above knees, like flaming like
on his hands, arms, all that.
It's just like damn. It's like could he have not chosen like an easier to do flaming fish than what he did? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Regarding, I give Triple H credit. Like he said, look, if you don't want to be on stage, you don't have to be. He never pressured anyone, to be there. But you saw on that front line, you saw, like I said, Jimmy Hart and DiBiase and Hacksaw, and there might have been somebody else I kind of forgot. Pat Patterson might have been there as well, and obviously he has his history too. Like they they were part of his era, and they're all gone. He's gone, and I remember Jesse Ventura saying, when he died, like, that's it. You realize we were all mortal now, because if the immortal Hulk Hogan dies, then that's it. That means that we're all ready to go. And I think when you look at someone like Ventura, I think he's waiting in the wings, and so are so many other people now as well. It's a shame.
Yep.
How long will we have DiBiase with us? How long will we have Hacksaw Ventura and these guys, Jimmy Hart?
And we totally fucking missed this, but how the fuck is Brian Blair and the Killer Bees not in the Hall of Fame yet? Because I wanted to mention that too. It was good to see him.
Shit. Yeah.
Brian Blair was in the dock, and I'm how the fuck are the Killer Bees not in the Hall of Fame yet? That's one of the most underrated tag team of the 80s. But yeah, all
Killer
these
Bees
guys,
and Brian Blair, yeah.
Yep. It's crazy. Yeah, like you said, like, Jesse was like, yeah, when he died, the mortality set in, because it's like we all got to have our time. But for Hogan to make it to 71, that's a hell of a feat, because with everything he's been through, God, I mean, I hope we all make it, to 70.
Because he wasn't just the injuries; it was the steroid use, drug use. I mean, like, that's all going to fame is like, that's going to put miles on your body that that can't be rubbed away.
But for me, like, Hogan was always going to live a bit longer, simply because he was that top guy, and that means he always had more money and he had better connections and stuff like that to stay around a bit longer. And you have to also remember is that he would, if he never went in for that surgery, he might still be with us right now. It was a surgery that killed him, which is crazy. It was supposed to help him, and it killed him. I'm sure those doctors are still living with the regret of that shit right now. But when you are 71 and you're getting cut open, or especially around the neck, there's a chance you're going to die, and he did. So especially with his medical history as well. So Hulk Hogan. You know what I'm going to say? Rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace. Thank you for your contributions.
I'm going to be the bigger man, regardless. And I know the terrible shit he's done, being a MAGA guy, the racism, everything. I was very conflicted. I don't know about you guys. There was a lot of conflict in me, because I love this fucking guy. I did. I loved him. I love Hogan, what he represented. I went as a kid and stuff like that. What he did for me made me so involved in wrestling and everything. It was the best thing to fucking happen to me when I was a young kid. So watching this and seeing him becoming an old man, and I don't know how you guys feel, regarding those particular aspects, Bossman.
It was just as you just said, it was just, I agree with you. Like he had a complicated history, and it was just sad to see him go. Because whether I liked him or not, he was a pop culture, and actually I appreciate him now more as an adult than I did as a kid. Because as a kid, I hated it because he was pushed in my face as the guy, and he was never my guy. I was more of a fan of like your Macho Man's, you saw a lot more technical guys. But now, as I've gotten older, I appreciate what he did more, because he was. I mean, you got to understand, like, he wasn't just him wrestling. He had to make flaming appearances. He had to do all the interviews. He had to do all the flaming make-a-wishes. He had to do all that shit. And it's just like, at some point, I mean, like, and I know that we can all joke about the whole thing, 400 days flaming travel thing, but he probably traveled most of the years he was married to Linda, because and you can only do that so long, because he missed stuff to do with his kids. I mean, that's one thing he did mention that we haven't, is that he only got so much time with his kids, and he felt bad about missing time with them, because he was having to be on the road so much, and it's just like, and then that's when I find myself like screaming at the screen, like, quit, like you've got so much money, you've made so much money as Hulk Hogan, you could probably live in a really comfortable lifestyle. you don't need to be doing this anymore. Quit. You know what I mean? And but
You
sometimes,
can find something else to do.
yeah, like I think
somebody
I
like
think
him.
sorry, I think he should have retired when after he was beaten by the Undertaker. I think after he was beaten by the Undertaker, he should have just said, "Right, I'm done." But then we would have got the NWO. But but even still, he should have just quit.
I'm just saying, he could have found another avenue. When you're at that level of, he's always going to be famous, and there'd always be some sort of demand for him, and he could have done maybe voice acting or something like that. There's stuff he could do. But anyway, Jose, how did he make you feel, man? Watching this series, like, how did you feel, and did it bring back childhood memories? Were you conflicted like I was?
Oh, I was definitely conflicted because I'm not going to pull punches. I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, oh, Hulk Hogan was a saint. He was perfect. Here's the thing about Hulk Hogan, the honest truth. I think Terry Bollea, the last 20 years of his life, was a complete mess. I don't approve of how he handled the post-racism controversy, telling talent like, oh, don't get caught. Be careful what you say. And for that, I think Terry Bollea is forever going to be seen as a piece of shit for that instance. But for Hulk Hogan, the man, the character, the performer, he is undoubtedly one of, if not the GOAT. He's on that Mount Rushmore. He's one of the greatest of all time. He gave us, some of the greatest moments, promos, gave us a great match with The Rock. And, he will forever be etched in history, whether people like it or not. Hulk Hogan is a GOAT. So that's my thoughts on that.
I mean, look at even like Steve Austin right now. Like, he had his time in the sun within the wrestling industry, but he was a mid carder who made it to the top within the WWE. Prior to that being in WCW, and then he was a top guy for a few years before injuries. He wasn't like top guy forever. By the way, Austin was only top guy for a few years, handful of years, and he got injured and he was out of the industry. And then he went incognito for a long time. And The Rock, he made it to the top pretty quick.
Yep.
But then within a few years, that's it. He's making movies instead. He's hardly wrestling anymore.
The only guy that you could argue to an extent is the Constance, like kind of next to Hogan, not on Hogan's level, but is Cena with as far as like the longevity, being that American hero for the kids, blah blah blah. Cena is the closest thing to Hogan for this generation that they're going to get.
He's like Rock and Hogan, in my opinion. Like, he's got the wrestling longevity of Hogan, but he's now getting in films like The Rock, not necessarily good ones, more like Hogan in that sense.
And I know they're gonna. And I know they're going to try to make Cody that next guy. It's not going to work. I mean, Hulk Hogan is a once-in-a-lifetime dude. He's a guy that we will never see again. I mean, if you were blessed to grow up in the 80s and 90s like we were, Hogan was that guy. He was, either the guy that you cheered for as a heel or you loved him as a babyface. Hulk Hogan is easily the most polarizing figure ever in wrestling, but his contributions cannot be ignored.
I want to round off by saying that what made me fascinated by this was like the psychology of what it means to be Hulk Hogan, because as I said earlier, he is Terry Bollea playing somebody else, and having to live up to the expectation. This is the thing, is like he was kind of like the prototype to what people like Cena and other people were able to follow without having to make the same mistakes, because Hogan made a lot of mistakes. And that kind of showed the human side of him when he was supposed to be this god. But Hogan, I don't think when he became a wrestler, especially as he started off as a heel, that he signed up to be, this hero for children. We're Make-A-Wish Foundation and all of this sort of shit, and having to, and he did a lot of that. Let's give him a lot of credit for that. He saw a lot. He still did that to his latter years. He would visit, people. You saw that, he would be signing autographs and taking pictures with young adults and kids with disabilities and stuff. People in hospitals and all of that. That's a lot to live up to. And then when you fall off your perch, and people see you for the human being that you are, it's very difficult, to be that top guy in the spotlight always. And psychologically, just trying to really see that and understand that made this, not only just a conflicting documentary, but a very fascinating one. you know, and I appreciate this stuff. I really like this documentary a lot. I really did. Much better than the Vince, much more fascinating, much more interesting in various ways, you know. But yeah, that's just all I have to say about that. Anything else you guys want to sign off with before we rate this documentary, Jose?
No, just thank you, Hulk Hogan, for the contributions, man. Without you, we would not be here today talking pro wrestling, man. You are on the Mount Rushmore, one of the GOATs, and you deserve your respect for all you gave in the ring, brother.
Gary.
Yeah, I echo what Halsey just said.
Okay, so let's mark it. I'm going to go first on this one.
Yep.
I've been waxing quite lyrical on this, and like I said, I watched it all. I binged it all in 2 days. You know, I had a very good time. A lot of the stuff I did know, a lot of the stuff I didn't know, like him having an actual brother, you know, for real, you know, who looked a lot like him, who died, and Hogan didn't want to talk about him, you know, and Hogan feels guilty for his brother's death, which is a shame, really. All these sort of things. Is Horace Hogan his brother's son?
Yeah, his
Or is
brother.
Horace...
Yeah, Hulk Hogan. Horace Hogan is Hulk Hogan's nephew.
Yeah, but is his brother's son?
Yeah,
Or
I don't
somebody
know.
else?
I think so.
Is he Gary?
I think so.
I don't know.
I always wondered, you know, about that. Anyway, regardless, yeah, I give this a 9. This was brilliant. And this is something we've been clamoring for. You know, we clamored for Vince, and we not necessarily got what we wanted from the Vince McMahon documentary because, you know, like the more interesting stuff they couldn't really cover, but we got a lot of that in this. Not everything. Like, you know what? I could totally understand why they didn't bring up Nick Hogan's car crash. I could totally understand that. You know, with Hogan being interviewed, he probably thought, "Fuck you guys, I ain't gonna talk about it." You know, so I totally understand that. But we got probably the most honesty we could get out of Hogan in this. It was great to watch and listen, and it was a better nostalgia trip than what we got from Vince's, you know, and other stuff, and right up to date with his life, you know, right up to his death. It was a brilliant watch. I loved it. I learned a lot of stuff I didn't know, and I knew a lot of stuff I did. So yeah, great. 9 out of 10. Gary.
I'll give it a 9 out of 10 as well.
And Jose.
Yeah, it's going to get a 9. It's one of the, if you're a wrestling fan, yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff you know, but then there's a lot of stuff you didn't know, and it's a great last look at insight at the man, Hulk Hogan. You know, the man, Terry Bollea, and the character, wrestler Hulk Hogan. And the last thing I wanted to mention, because I didn't get to say this, was the funniest thing about this documentary was 7 minutes in, Terry Bollea buries the Hulk Hogan character by being like, it's a fake character. And I just chuckled at that. I laughed out loud at that. I'm like, dude buried all that work for 40 plus years and just buried it. But yeah, he was like making fun of people that like took the Hulk Hogan character serious. And he's like, dude, I'm just a character. But yeah, it's a 9 out of 10. It's one of the best documentaries that you're ever going to see.
It's funny because you know, his wife Linda did mention. Is it Linda? Yeah. By the way, when I found out his wife's name was Linda, I immediately was thinking of Batman and Superman. How they both got their mums have both got the same first name, and so does Vince and Hogan's wives both have the same first names. That's what I was thinking. But regardless, Linda did say that, you know, at one particular point you didn't know who Terry was and who Hogan was because they kind of melded together. And Hogan and Terry Bollea became like Hulk Hogan to a degree, but then you can see by the end of his years, the end of his life, that he became Terry Bollea again. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Winnie. Thank you very much. When he's saying hi to us.
Hello.
But yeah, he became Terry Bollea again, and he said, yeah, Hulk Hogan was just a gimmick.
Yeah,
you know?
and the thing is, I don't think they touched on it, but the thing is, when you're in wrestling, you marry. The thing is, you marry your character. Like when you are in pro wrestling, you become that character. Like Bret Hart hasn't been Bret Hart in a long time because Bret is still kind of that character. Richard Flair doesn't exist anymore because Ric Flair came in and took over his life. And it was good to see Hulk Hogan or Terry Bollea go from being Hulk Hogan for like 30, 40 years back to being Terry Bollea. And at least he got to live his life in peace. I'm glad that he got to live his final few years, his golden years in peace.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
So yeah, so like I said before, like, I'm very happy we got this because we've been clamoring for something like this, and it was always going to be like a 4-parter, and I guess to a degree we can never expect Darkseid to give it to us. It had to be like a Netflix, and we got it. We
Yeah.
finally got it. So I guess that's it now. There's no more. Maybe I can't imagine there being a documentary with too much negativity on people like Cena and shit. We're talking about people who don't even rock the boat. You know, when you think about it, but Cena's still got a long way to go. He's still quite young, considering. Maybe once he has a few more bombs at the box office, maybe we'll start seeing a different side to him. Who knows? But so far, he's still pretty squeaky clean. Maybe Triple H. I don't know. One day, who knows? Anyway,
Yep.
I'm sorry for yabbering on. I do apologize. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, we've been going on for this for 2 hours now, guys. Not
Yeah.
bad. Not bad at all. Yeah, you love Bret Hart, don't you, Cheeto? Cheeto loves Bret Hart.
Yeah, I'll have to get going in a few minutes, God. Sorry.
Yeah.
No problem. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to NerdTube, the greatest social media channel you never heard of, and let us know in the comments below what you thought of this series and our opinions of it. Take care.
Brother.
Bye, brother. R.I.P.